like to introduce Rocky Blunt, drummer, soldier, award-winning newspaperman, author. Rocky Blunt is one of the more dynamic personalities on the local scene, as you'll see in a minute. He's been drumming for more than a half century. At 12, he started playing at the Saxstrom Club. He went on to tour with Bob Chester in a big band Blunt called a B-Band National Touring Act. Blunt earned 3 battle stars, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, and the Bronze Star for his military service. His life in the military is well documented in 2 memoirs, Inside the Battle of the Bulge and Foot Soldier. Returning home, the drummer organized one of the city's first integrated bands, Rocky Blunt's All-Stars, with pianist Henry Monroe, Howie Jefferson, Morgan Sorrell, and Barney Price. In 1949, he graduated with honors from the New England Conservatory, majoring in percussion. Blunt's professional skills have been enlisted over the years by such bands and leaders as Tony Ferris, Bob Nelson, George Gregory, the Milestones, and the Classic Swing Big Band. Now in his 70s, Blunt still has all pistons firing and can be heard drumming with the Ragtime Rowdies. In 1994, he presented a History of Jazz program at Clark. Among the invited guests were descendants of Mamie Moffett, Freddie Bates, and other pioneers of the music. Blunt assembled an all-star cast to celebrate with Al Mueller, Dick Godwin, Emil Haddad, Gene Carlson, Tommy Herbert, Rick Stepton, Joe Pisano, Steve Kinselli, and special guest Reggie Wally sitting in on vocals. This is Rocky Blunt.
My subject this afternoon is the Saxstrom Club. It's a very unusual name, and for those who aren't familiar with it, sax meant Howie Jefferson sax, and trumpet was Trum, Barney Price. Sax Trum, the 2 prime movers during the late 30s and early 40s as far as black jazz in Worcester was concerned. And they were the prime movers. And they were the mentors for many, many aspiring young jazz musicians, both black and white. Saxstrom Club was not a glitzy nightclub with neon signs and everything else. It was a rather dingy little storefront on Clayton Street. 1 room, dark. I remember nights when there were only 1 bulb shining out of the ceiling. But it didn't need illumination because it had the beauty and the talent of some wonderful musicians. The Saxstrom Club was the center of the universe for aspiring jazz musicians. It was the shoehorn that sent many, many very talented young folks on careers in music. And it came about largely because of Barney and Howard. They were giants in their field. But the Saxstrom Club also spawned some other giants. The greatest trumpet player and flugelhorn ever to come out of the city of Worcester, and he's still performing. As far as that was the Saxstrom Club, and that was Barney and Howard, and they took some of us under their wing, and they taught us soul music, how to play from inside. Not just what our music teachers had taught us, they taught us how to feel music. Some of us, Emil and I, as far as I know, are the last 2 alumni of the Saxstrom Club that are still performing. I can't think of anyone else that's still out there playing. I think we'll be 100 and we'll still be playing, Emil.
Absolutely.
But the Saxstrom Club, to a certain degree, was by invitation only. Howie and Barney were sort of screened who they wanted to come in and play. It wasn't any old kid. And if they thought you played well enough, you were invited. The sessions, for the most part, were on Tuesday nights. At the Plymouth Theater, when in those days all of the big bands came through, Lucky Millender and you can't name Carl Hart, Sam Donahue. You could go right down the list of all of the bands. Cozy Cole, Roy Eldridge, the name of these jazz giants was endless. They appeared at the Plymouth Theater Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay, they came into town on Monday. They didn't feel like jamming. They wanted to get some rest or whatever else they felt like doing. Wednesday night was what they called getaway night. That's when the bands packed up and headed 400 miles out to the next gig somewhere. But Tuesday night, yeah, that was the night to jam. And Howie and Barney and maybe Harold Black, I know I was there a couple of times. We'd go and hang around the stage door at the Plymouth Theater. Hey, man, there's a session over here. And Cozy Cole, all of them came over. Yeah, come on, let's go. And we would jam after the last show. I should explain. They had a movie and a band, and then a movie and a band. And the band might play, the movie might show 3 times from the afternoon, and the band would perform 3 times. After the last show, 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that was jamming time. I was a kid, very, very young. There's kind of a history behind the Saxstrom Club. I'll digress here for just a moment. This was the period coming off of the Great Depression. Times still were not very good, 39, 40. They still weren't that great. Howie and Barney knew that my father worked for the Worcester County Institution for Savings. There's a name from the distant past. He was a rent collector over in what at that time was known as the East Side. And Howie and Barney went to him and said, Mr. Blunt, we're looking for a place to play our music. We want to jam. Do you know where there's any property available? Well, Dad worked for the bank, and he said, gee, guys, I don't know. I'll go down through our list of repossessed property or whatever. And he came back a while later and said, yeah, I got a place. It's a little storefront. Nothing to brag about, but can you handle $1 a month? Barney, yeah, man, we can handle about $1 a month. And then the jam session started. So now my dad, ever cool, said, oh, hey, guys, I got a kid at home that thinks he wants to be a drummer. Right away, Howard, bring him along, Mr. Bunt, bring him over. We'll let him play. And that started it. Here I am, almost 76 years old, and I'm still playing. All because of Howard and Barney. But the Saxstrom Club, it was a unique place. As I said, it was a shoehorn to get a lot of young musicians to hear real music, soul music, real rhythm and blues type music. We would jam. I remember Sam Donahue one night sitting on his sax case on the floor, and he was blowing so hard that his face was bright red and the tears were coming down from exertion. And then at midnight, the tempos would slow down. And that's when the belly rubbing music started. They weren't ballads, they were blues. But we affectionately called it belly rubbing because if someone wanted to dance, that was the music to do it. There were very seldom any women there. Oh, if the musicians had a friend, fine. They'd come and they'd sit and they would listen. And sit, they didn't play. 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd play all night. And then with daybreak, we'd wash our face and go to school. And I remember the cop coming and with a nightstick banging on the door, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And we'd open the door and he'd flash the light around, make sure everything was okay, nothing funny was going on. And he'd say, guys, keep playing. But will you quiet it down a little? We can't get the kids to go to bed. And you'd look out in the street and here would be a half a dozen beautiful little children. Hey, man, they're boogieing, they're dancing. They loved the music. And the mothers couldn't get them to come in the house and go to bed. And so we'd quiet way down for a little while. And then look out, the ceiling would fall in after that. And it was the most beautiful, exciting, inventive, original music that perhaps ever was played in Worcester. It was the springboard for an awful lot of wonderful musicians. There'll never be another place like it. It was unique. It was a one-of-a-kind. It was dingy. But it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Rocky Blunt.